Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm It's Robbie Rhino, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the stealthiest tank destroyer in the Cold War game mode in World of Tanks console, and it is of course the M50 Ontos. In today's video we're going to be looking at 3 gameplays in this very unique, very small and very strange tank destroyer, and we're going to be seeing the kinds of mischief you can get up to with this tank on the battlefield. If you want to have a full rundown of the stats of the M50 Ontos, I'll link above for you now my review of this tank where I go into detail about the M50 Ontos. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to be focusing on its concealment rating and the gameplay and the things you can get away with and the fantastic results you can get away with in this tank if you do play it to its strengths and you set it up correctly and you don't get taken out within the first 5 minutes of the battle, because I've seen so many people play this tank rush forward with its fantastic concealment, get spotted once and get taken out of the game. And if you are patient enough in certain situations, you could do hilarious things to your opponents. They can't spot you with the true vision system due to your extremely strangely shaped triangular hull and your very low profile. It's very easy to hide in bushes, hide in shadowy areas and use hard cover to avoid detection from the true vision system, and you use the concealment rating to your advantage. But for those of you that know absolutely nothing about the M50 Ontos, I'll briefly tell you a little bit about the tank. You have 6 guns, as you can see, and that equates to a 6-shot autoloader capable of dealing 2,350 damage per clip, so that's 390 damage per shot with your heat rounds, which are standard heat rounds, and if you use your HE rounds you'll be pushing it up to 530 damage per shot, but it's very hard to use heat anyway, and HE is extremely hard to use in the Cold War game mode. In terms of your hit points, you have very low hit points at 2,190. That's towards really the bottom end of hit points in the era 2 of the Cold War game mode, and you're not going to be lasting long if you start getting a shot in this thing, because you don't have any armour and you are not very fast at all. You are very slow with your hull traverse and your traverse with your guns, and your speed is pretty poor. You can be lulled into a false sense of security with this tank, thinking you're a light tank, playing it like a light tank, which you definitely can do, but you've got to be careful not to get spotted, and once you do, you can't really run away from any tank in Era 2 of the Cold War game mode, so you've got to be very careful, and you don't want to be getting hit, or you don't want to be getting rammed in this thing, because you'll be taken out of the game quick sharp, and yeah, you're going to be going back to the garage and picking another tank. But in terms of its concealment then, why is it so good and what is it? Well, if you go to the Tankopedia on the World of Tanks console website, the Still Concealment figure is listed at 0.47, and this basically means 47%, so 47% can Still Concealment when you are sat there without any equipment or commander skills to add to your concealment or camouflage on your tank. That's your base values. You're going to be taking 47% of your enemy's view range away, and that's absolutely exceptional for a tank destroyer. Of course, light tanks have their Still Concealment and their concealment effective when they're on the move as well as stationary, but tank destroyers do have a little boost to their concealment as well, but just not on the move. So if you are moving on this tank, you will lose a little bit of your concealment rating, but because that Still Concealment rating is so damn good on the M50 Ontos, you can get it to a level where practically no one can spot you unless you fire your gun or you get within their 50-meter proxy spotting distance. In terms of boosting the concealment of the M50 Ontos, all you have to do is pretty much add every single equipment or commander skill that you can to this tank to boost your concealment, and you have to use the enhanced smokescreen as a consumable, which I do. So what do I run on the M50 Ontos to get to the best level I can and the sort of commander and equipment setup that works best for me? Well, in terms of my equipment, I run advanced concealment, traction system and advanced powertrain. And in terms of my commander, I run 6th Sense, Spawn Leader, Rapid Loading, Steady Aim, Snapshot, Run and Gun, Camouflage Expertise, Muffled Shot and Green Thumb. So all of the camouflage skills that I can fit in there. You could even put silent driving in there, because you are not a light tank, you are a tank destroyer. That would be effective on your vehicle. That would boost it up a little bit more, but it would kind of be pointless because I've got my level down to basically the proxy spotting distance. But you could take out something like Rapid Loading or one of the gun handling skills for silent driving if you wanted to max out the concealment crew on this tank. And in terms of the equipment, I've chosen to run both pieces of mobility equipment to help the traverse out on this tank. The guns don't go the full way round, only 40 degrees to the left and 40 degrees to the right, which can be very difficult when things are trying to circle you. So that's the reason why I am running the mobility equipment, to try and avoid getting rammed by tanks when you're spotted, because that can absolutely annihilate you when a heavy tank comes in for a ram, especially with the speed they can go in Era 2 of the Cold War game mode. And that's the setup that I found works really well for this tank, and you have a fantastic ability to make a lot of silver in this tank, and we're coming to a part in this video which I found completely hilarious. We didn't get spotted there until we fired at that BMP-1 there. We're sort of 65 to 70 metres away, and he just couldn't spot us. We're directly behind him, no foliage in front of us, and there's nothing he could do. By the time he turned around, we've put most of our clip into him, and we finished him off. And that's the kind of hilarious things you can do in this tank. And this is an average game that I've been having recently in the M50 Ontos, and this is still a pretty decent game, especially if you're just grinding for credits. So in that game, we picked up 3 kills. We got our first mark in that game by the looks of it, 4.7k direct damage, 2.7k assistance, and we actually blocked 390 damage somehow off of the absolutely no armour that this tank has. And if you wanted to know how much armour this tank has, all I have to tell you is that the hull itself is 12 millimeters over the front and the sides and the rear, and I think the strongest part is actually the guns, which, you know, isn't armor, is that if they hit that, they're just going to break your guns. It's 45 millimeters, so no armor at all. This is really a glass cannon tank destroyer, but that's a good game in that tank, a very average game, like I say, that I've been having because I've been playing this tank for a while and getting to grips with its playstyle. You're looking at a silver profit of 263,000 in that game. So now we're going to skip on into the second game and talk more about the fantastic concealment of this tank. So we're now into the second game of today's video in the M50 Ontos. We're on Alamein and we're playing a standard battle, so we're going to head towards a location at the start of the map, towards the centre of the map, where we can see if we can get some assistance early doors. But a little bit more to start with on the M50 Ontos and its guns. I think a lot of people, myself included, when they pick up this tank, it makes you a lot of silver, but you don't seem to have any fantastic games, and that's just because you're not utilising the concealment and playing that as its biggest strength. You're thinking 6 guns, a 6-shot autoloader capable of dealing a lot of damage. You reload in about 27 seconds with my commander and equipment set up for that 2,350 damage clip, and you're just looking at ways to making the gun work because the shell velocity is so poor, because you can only fire heat and HE. If you're looking at the shell velocity figures, it's 503 meters a second on the heat and 498 meters a second on the HE, so very slow indeed, over half as slow as most of the guns in Era 2 of the Cold War game mode, so you'd have to double the lead on your targets. This is very hard to hit tanks at sort of mid to long ranges. But the fact that you have such good concealment rating, and the fact that you can boost it to such a level where they basically can't spot you unless they're physically looking at you with the true vision system, means you can get close enough to your opponents to make your gun work, maybe pop your smoke and then get out of dodge and sort of rinse and repeat, and that's the kind of playstyle of the M50 Ontos. So I didn't actually tell you what my Still Concealment rating is, and I alluded to the fact that it's basically close to the proximity detection, which is 50 meters within the game. So if you get within 50 meters of an opponent, they're going to spot you regardless of your concealment rating or their view range. But if you add my commander and equipment setup together, you'll get a Still Concealment rating of 53 meters. So I've only got 3 meters between that and the proximity detection. So I've basically got nearly the sort of highest you can get, and I'm sure if you added the silent drive in, you'd probably add it up and it would probably come to basically 50 meters. So you've basically got as good concealment as you can get. You're practically invisible in this tank, and especially when you are hidden in a bush, you're hiding your low profile, people aren't going to spot you very easily at all. I'm sort of on a ridgeline here and I haven't been shot at once, and I've been shooting my gun. People could see my shell tracers. but the fact that you're so small and you don't have a lot of time to sit on a ridge and look around in the Cold War game mode because of that true vision system. If you're a bigger tank, people are going to be able to spot the bigger tanks first, and they're not going to be able to stay on ridge lines and sort of scan the horizon for tanks like this that are scuttling around like little cockroaches on the battlefield, and you can just get up to some crazy things. And in this gameplay you're going to see how I'm able to relocate in sort of front of opponents that really should be looking around and seeing me, but they're just not using their free camera. They're focusing on their next target, and they're being completely distracted by the fact that people could be coming up behind them, like this BMP2, as you're seeing here in the gameplay in the background. He's not going to be aware of me until I fire my gun at him. I try and get a third autolock shell in. I should have just driven over this ridge and then carried on with my shells, because I'm going to get into a sticky situation here where I've used my last shell, and this BMP2 is going to finally switch to his secondary cannon. But unfortunately for him, unfortunately for me, the Tyran 6 comes and saves the day, and I say thank you, which allows me to go forth and use my concealment to spot out for my team. And I'm going to be the one spotting because I've got the best concealment. I've got a view range of 547 meters with my commander and equipment set up, and I'm going to be the one to go forth and spot for my team because they've helped me out of that situation. For the first time in absolutely ages, I've actually been spotted out in the open, and you'd think it'd be easy, but just people don't scan the horizon and they're not too aware of their surroundings. And I urge you, if you're getting shot by things like this, BMPs sort of come up behind you and they're surprising you, make sure you're always scanning horizons, scanning ridge lines, looking behind you when you're in a position, just to make sure nothing's sneaking up on you, because you have that true vision system and you have the ability to actually see these tanks. It's harder when they're this kind of profile, but you still can do. However, on some maps that are densely sort of populated with foliage, you can hide in the bushes, hide in the trees, and there's just sometimes nothing that the enemies can do about your sort of presence behind them. You can sneak up to them. There was no chance that they could have spotted you, and that's the way you got to play this tank, is this very sneaky ambush sort of scout. It waits, it preys on opponents that are distracted by another tank. And yeah, the worst part of playing against this tank is when you are focused on another tank and it just comes up behind you and it reloads relatively quickly and gets its shots out so quickly. With its intricate reload of 1.5 seconds, you're going to be 2,350 damage worse off, give or take a sort of 100 damage here or there, and yeah, you're going to be absolutely screwed. And by the time this chieftain's even noticed that we're firing at him, we've managed to put our whole magazine into him, and the Tyran 6 actually finishes him off before our last shell gets there. But you can see the power of the M50 Ontos in a late game scenario here, where we're able to carry the game by using our view range, distracting opponents, using distractions ourselves to get our magazines in, and we are taking this game down with the help of our friendly medium tank. And it's now 2 against 1. We're against the last remaining enemy heavy tank. I'm signalling that I'm on my way with the command wheel, just to let the medium tank know that I'm going to try and spot this tank out and he can take the damage, because I'm now a one shot for this medium tank. Unless he sort of hits my tracks or low rolls, then I'm going to be a goner. So I'm going to be the one to try and spot out this heavy tank, and it's going to be a tank that I'm going to struggle very much to pen. It's going to be a very hard penetration. That FE4 to 11 against heat rounds is going to be ridiculously hard to penetrate. It's either cupola, the very rear of the tank, or maybe if I can loop them into the engine deck, or just get lucky through the top part of his side. But I'm going to be the one to spot him here. I'm using the free camera, as you can see. I've spotted him and he hasn't spotted me. Look how close we are, and I'm using this hard cover here just to avoid his gaze from the free camera in case he is looking around him. I'm keeping him lit. I'm not going to go out and risk getting one shot, because I don't want my medium tank to be fighting this alone. I'm going to try and distract him as much as possible for this Tyran to come round and hopefully deal the finishing blow from behind this FE4 to 11, and he does, taking the shot himself, but he was healthy, and we helped that situation just by being that invisible presence spotting the enemy tank. So in that game we finish with a 280,000 silver profit, 1.4k base experience, second on our team, 6.6k direct damage, and 539 assistance with that one kill. So another decent game, showing you the power of the M50 Ontos. So now we're going to skip ahead to the best game that I've had in recent times in the M50 Ontos and see the sort of limit that this tank is capable of. Righty ho, so we're now on Cao Bang in the M50 Ontos, and we're going to head to a position to see if we can get some early spotting assistance for ourselves. This map's absolutely fantastic for the M50 Ontos, not only because it has lots of different positions where we're able to get forward and spot with our concealment, it's because it has such dense foliage. There's so many bushes and trees, it means that we can hide in the shadowy areas of the bushes and basically remain hidden until we fire or until a tank gets within 53 meters of us. I just want to reiterate at the start of this video how important the view range and concealment can be in the Cold War game mode, regardless of the fact that there is true vision in the Cold War game mode. So true vision means you're always rendered. Every tank in the game is always rendered, always visible on the map. If you're looking with the naked eye, you can see and shoot a tank. You can't look onto them, but you can see and shoot them. Whereas in World War II, obviously you just have the vision mechanics, but the vision mechanics still work alongside the true vision system, meaning that I have to do the same things to actually actively spot the enemies that I would do in World War II. So you see me getting forwards here. I'm sat in a bush. It's transparent. I can see through the bush. I'm retaining some of the bush's concealment behind to the sides of me, and if I were to fire, I would lose concealment through firing, and also I would lose the bush's concealment because it's transparent. But if I wanted to fire, I'd pull back about 15 meters behind a bush till it's opaque with the sniper view, and I can fire through it and keep as much of the concealment rating of the foliage as possible. And that's how you spot through a bush. You go through it till it's transparent, spot, pull back until it's opaque, and then shoot. That's remaining as much of the concealment as possible. Of course, the view range levels are higher in the Cold War game mode, but it's nearly impossible for a lot of tanks at certain distances to spot a tank like this, especially if you have a poor commander and not much view range on a certain tank. So it's still very important, especially the concealment and the bush mechanics. And don't forget that, because right now there's no chance that T-72 can see me. He knows I'm here obviously because I just fired at him, but there's no chance he can see me in this position with the naked eye unless I basically go side to side in and out of the bush. If I remained hidden, he wouldn't see me, but unfortunately in this particular gameplay he has seen me, and he's going to come after me. So we take a shot from someone behind us. We did pop our smoke there, but kind of in the wrong position. However, it has allowed us to escape out the top here in this F5 location, and we're going to try and zoom around and get to a position where we're able to help out this friendly light tank and maybe take this T-72 out of the game, although the Scorpion 90 does it for herself, and then we can re-stealth and choose a different position. And it's all about choosing the stealthiest positions available to you that allow you to spot for yourself, but always having an exit plan in place. So here I know that I can hide on a lot of these ridgelands because we're so small, and I know a lot of these people won't even spot me, and if they did, they're going to be more focused about the shots they're going to be taking from my teammates who are in support of me. And this is a kind of calculated push. This is a bit ridiculous, and it might seem ridiculous sitting out in the open, but if that friendly M60A2 wasn't there, we would get that spotting assistance for the M60A3 who has just been taken out by him. And we're behind enemy lines here. We're on the other side of this sort of river ravine on Cao Bang, and we're sat here in G7, and there's nothing they can do because I'm spotting these tanks in the middle. They're not quite sure where they're getting spot from, and I have shots all across the centre and towards the sort of north and the western side of the map where the enemy team are flanking around. We've already picked up a bit of assistance in this game and a little bit of damage, and it's all about picking my moment to fire. I had chances earlier where I felt like if I fired, I was giving my position away, and not only I might have got spotted, but I might also have given away it with the shell tracers. I might have been spotted with the naked eye. So it's all about using my small profile, my concealment, to pick the right moment to ambush an opponent, maybe an opponent that I know's on roughly the right amount of health that I can take out, so 2,350 or below. And right now I'm going to come up to this BMP2 who didn't spot me again until I fired. That was ridiculous. I was right in front of him, and obviously it seems ridiculous if you're looking at a realistic game, but this is more of an arcade game with elements of realism in the game. This is an arcade game. The spotting mechanics are in there for World War II to make it sort of a balancing factor, whether you think it's balanced or not on how they balance the tanks, but that's why it's in the game. And use it and abuse it, or just you're going to have worse games than if you didn't think of these things before you started. But in this particular game, we flanked around. We're making sure we're given enough time in between our magazines to re-stealth, come around from a different angle and pick on our target, and by the time that Centurion 9 turned around, we managed to eliminate him from the game. We're going to turn around, re-stealth, and see if we can get into a different position to try and hide our tank. And this is how I like to play the M50 Ontos, very aggressively, like a pseudo light tank, and I'm just going to see what I can get away with. And it looks like this game is going to be a potential loss, but I'm going to try and do as much as possible to get as much out of this game. And this game here is a particular example of just the kind of game you can have in this tank if you are ballsy and play quite aggressive and put your concealment to the test and boost it up as much as possible. If you play a little bit more passively, that's absolutely fine. You can still have fantastic results, but you can get away with playing this aggressively because of the insane concealment on this tank. Like I just said, it seems ridiculous when you're thinking a tank can't hear or see a tank that is, the size of 2, 3, 4 people stacked on top of each other, but that's just the way it is in the game. Like at Olympus, I guess that's the kind of thing, but we're getting capped out in this one. We're only 2 tanks behind, actually. We've pulled it back a little bit, and I want to see if I can reset and then maybe escape. So we do spot those tanks in the middle, and we don't get spotted again until we fire. Hopefully I got enough time to take out this BMP2. However, one of my shots just bounces off the side of his armour. That's kind of a problem with the heat. I think it might have even been absorbed by his track. We've spotted him, and now we're trying to escape. And this is the mobility with the mobility equipment added to the tank, and you can see just how poor the mobility is of the M50 Ontos compared to a lot of the other tanks in the Cold War game mode. And now we're just trying to escape this situation. However, these 2 tanks didn't spot me until we were technically beside them, just saying hello. It's like that meme from, I don't know what TV program, where they're in the car and they spot each other driving past each other. Let me know, Umbrella Academy, that's the one. But we take out the light tank, or our friendlies might have taken out the light tanks. We take out that T-72 as he's taken us down, but now it's just us against 4 tanks, and we're going to see what we can get away with. We're on our reload, we're up to 7.2k direct damage and 2.2k assistance, and now we're trying to evade fire, weaving in and out with the very poor traverse speeds of the M50 Ontos, and they've lost sight of me now. And that just again shows you the insane concealment rating of this tank. This Leopard 1A1 doesn't know I'm here until I start firing at him, and when I do, I try and juke him up by going forwards. Hopefully I'm going to set him on fire. I managed to evade one of the ATGMs. We take out the T-92, and again I'm just trying to get to this moment where I am unspotted, because a lot of people will auto-aim, and you can't auto-aim on something that's just rendered in the game with the True Vision. So now they can't auto-aim on me, they've got a free aim, and I'm sort of banking on the fact that a lot of these people might not be able to aim as well as some of other players, and I'm just hoping that these players aren't good players and that they just can't aim at me. And we're trying to sort of hide behind this rock, make them sort of think we've escaped, and we're going to see if we can go around and finish this Leopard 1A1 off. Of course, we enter the capture call, which would show that we are near them, so they are going to be looking for us. We managed to get 2 shots to finish off that Leopard 1A1, and now we're going to hide behind cover. So close to being able to get out of this game, but unfortunately we get tracked by the FE4-211. We managed to put one in because we're higher than him, but he manages to reload with that very quick reload that tank has and takes us out. But that would have been a very difficult fight to win anyway. But you just saw the kind of result we had when it looked impossible to get anything else out of the game. We managed to pick up 7 kills, 9.3k direct damage, 2.2k assistance, 485,000 silver with a fantastic game in the M50 Ontos. We finished on the MVP slot even though we are on the losing team, and that just goes to show the power of the concealment of this tank and the kind of things you can get away with. It's hilariously fun if you don't take it ridiculously seriously. It can be frustrating with the heat, but you can make that work at the distances you can get towards people. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and you found it informative, and until next time, I'll see you on the battlefield, and bye for now.